Good day, I'm Askar Sherlief and you're watching the news from Kazakhstan. President Nazarbayev called the flour producers of Kazakhstan to conquer foreign markets, while the wheat harvest is destroyed by heat waves and prices for bread and flour are skyrocketing. The Uyghur issue. Almaty held an event commemorating the victims of the last year conflict in China, Xinjiang province. Emergency ambulance can't exceed the speed limit. Shymkent emergency workers are fined. President Nursultan Nazarbayev had ordered the government not to let the increase of prices for bread and flour during a governmental session held in Astana addressing the agriculture issues, as reported by the president's press service.
Nursultan Nazarbayev gave an order to conduct an analysis of financial condition of producers of agricultural goods in the most devastated by the drought areas. The difficult formulation most likely implies the village residents and farmers. The head of state has ordered to provide feed grain to stock-raising economies, to monitor the delivery of food to the farmers for collection of harvest. At the same time, Nursultan Nazarbayev has urged to increase the export of flour despite of current difficulties. The export potential of the country is estimated at 8 million tons, and according to the president, the current year can become a great opportunity for the conquering of foreign markets by the Kazakh millers.
Earlier, Prime Minister Karim Masimov had assured the population that the situation with flour and bread prices is totally under the government's control. Meanwhile, prices for mentioned goods in the market are skyrocketing in western Kazakhstan as a result of the wave heats.
The drought in the western Kazakhstan has resulted in the rapid increase of bread prices in Mangistau region, and now one loaf of bread costs 37 cents compared to the previous 25. At the same time, according to the statistics agency, in July the cost of wheat flour in the country has increased by 12%. The agency on protecting of the competition is already examining the increase of prices.
At the moment, the agency's corresponding department in the western Kazakhstan was ordered to conduct an investigation.
The measures will be taken upon the results of the investigation. The representatives of the agency claim that the bread-producing plant Magash in Mangistau region has increased the prices on bread because the prices on flour have increased in the northern Kazakhstan. The Tesnastik, however, refrains from commenting its decision.
Our deputy head of marketing department is on vacation. He will be back only next week. For now, no one will provide any comments, whereas others have no right to provide any comments.
According to the chairman of the political party Ayul, Gani Kaliyev, in the worst scenario, the country can hope for its reserves. According to the agriculture minister, it's estimated at 5 to 7.5 thousand tons of grain. But according to Kaliyev, this is not the merit of the state, but just a luck, because the last year's harvest was substantial.
But it doesn't mean that everything is ideal. At the moment, our state and especially the government have to take adequate measures in the sector of agrarian policies, and primarily in the western Kazakhstan.
The scheme is new. Previously, the price for bread and flour had increased by 3 cents in the south of country. Prime Minister Karim Masimov has ordered to discover the reason. The investigation proved that it was a price deal between the bakeries and prices have been dropped.
An appeal over the first instance court decision on the case of public activist Aydos Sadikov was submitted to Aktobe Regional Court. It was reported by politicians' lawyers yesterday. The oppositionist was sentenced for 2 years of minimum security prison for alleged hooliganism and resistance to authorities. However, Sadikov claims he became a victim of provocation and doesn't plead guilty. New details of the case were revealed by oppositionist lawyers who found mistakes in the trial protocol. They are now collecting signatures on the appeal to the President Nazarbayev.
The lawyers of public activist Aydos Sadikov have appealed the decision of the first instance court, in which the defense calls the judge to enter the video showing the incident in details upon record. The material allegedly proves the faultlessness of the convict. The Sadikov's lawyers claim that the city court had simply copied down the prosecution's resolution in its decision.
I have an impression that the judge is prejudiced and doesn't even seem to be interested in fair review of the case, as there are all possibilities to establish the facts, but for some reason the judge kept ignoring or turning them down all the time.
Aydos Sadikov was arrested on May 27 with hooliganism charges. 3 weeks later, the Aktobe City Court had accused him in hooliganism accompanied with resistance to law enforcement bodies. Recently, the court had failed to satisfy the claims of the defense about the mistakes in the trial protocol. Lawyers say the document document contained testimonies which were changed in favor of prosecution, while some were simply absent. The audio recordings proving this are available, however, the court refused to consider them.
You see, he's not actually accountable for decisions made by him before anybody.
Aidos Sadikov is currently held at the pre-trial detention center. He was sentenced for 2 years' term in the minimum security prison. Meanwhile, activists told reporters that they started collecting signatures for the appeal to President Nazarbayev in protection of the politician.
On August 3rd, ethnic Uyghur residents of Almaty had commemorated the last year's tragic events held in Western China. As a result of the inter-ethnic clashes in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, Chinese police have arrested hundreds of people while hundreds of others were severely beaten. Participants of the thematic roundtable have voiced demands to release the convicts and stop the authorities practicing policies suppressing the ethnic minorities of China.
The Uyghur diaspora of Kazakhstan had demanded the Chinese authorities to release all the arrested participants of the last year's events in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. Political experts and ordinary citizens commemorated the ethnic clashes victims in a thematic roundtable held in Almaty yesterday.
People became desperate because of horrible massacre and injustice. Right now there is an opinion that it is going to happen anyways. Even if you obey, they will still continue shooting and killing, so it's better to keep resisting.
The conflict between ethnic Chinese and Uyghurs started on June 26 last year, supposedly because of the social fight, which eventually turned into wide-scale inter-ethnic clashes. On July 5th, the military forces have broken up the demonstration of Uyghurs, which was followed by confrontations, fire and deaths of some 1,000 people. The conflict had influenced the economic situation in the region, as the Kazakh businessmen had to stop their business activities related with the Xinjiang.
There is a saying, money love peace, so any conflicts involving force and weapons like of last year's negatively influences the investment climate and thus backwards the social and economic development.
According to famous Central Asian analyst Alexander Knyazev, the vastly developing economy of China will not tolerate neither the regional instability nor totalitarian regime. Therefore, Chinese authorities must look for different solutions of the Uyghur problem, says the expert. Quite possibly the Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region will face some social and political reforms shortly. However, it's unknown how the 8 million Uyghur community will react to them.
The land issue had nearly led to clashes between neighbors of Almaty's Bakai settlement yesterday. The residents of the mentioned district divided into two groups of interests, one representing people who resided the area 10 years ago and the other representing people who just moved in the area, are fighting for the legitimacy of land ownership.
Are you out of your mind? You're spoiling a press conference. I'm also a victim.
The conflict between the residents of Almaty micro-district Bakai has turned into a fight right in the middle of the press conference. The chairman of the city branch of the National Social Democratic Party Azad, Amirbek Togusov, was accused of falsifying the documents and creating hatred. The opposition member represents the interests of the so-called Old Bakai residents, compiled of 194 families who live in the micro-district since 1997. They are opposed by the new residents who have settled 5 years ago. On July 30, the newcomers have protested in front of the building of Turksip administration, demanding to protect them from Togusov. Togusov responded that the new Bakai residents have nothing to do with the problematic micro-district.
They've passed all the circles of hell and received new neighbors instead of documents. Who are those uninvited neighbors?
The uninvited neighbors made an aggressive response and the situation has heated to the highest point. Trying to avoid the fight, the members of the press club have taken out the new residents of Bakai outside, but the squabble continued.
If Togusov is able to provide those 900 square meters of land, let him do so. He has the land. Let him give it away.
Meanwhile, the deputy mayor of Almaty, Alexei Dumanov, assures that people are simply trying to snatch more land and refuse to compromise with the government.
We use the simplified but legal scheme, but they are refusing to follow this legal scheme. If they will not follow it, they will not receive any land lots.
According to Seydumanov, the situation in Bakai is being resolved. The specially created commission that includes not only state officials but also the representatives of public unions has conducted 9 sessions examining every claim. However, even the deputy mayor is unable to give any concrete guarantees that this land scandal will be ever resolved.
Medical workers in Astana refused to render first aid to hunger-striking interest holders. A doctor who introduced himself as Vitaly Kudryavtsev didn't observe one of the strikers, Rizida Simbinova, whose health condition got worsened after the 10th day of the campaign. It is unclear why the doctor had failed in his duties.
He just measured the blood pressure and was about to go, and I said, please tell us how is she feeling. Then he said patient had a radiculitis and that he can't operate with his fingers, and left. That was it.
After doctors' first visit, the health condition of the striker had worsened more. The next emergency ambulance call was made and woman was hospitalized with extremely lowered blood pressure. On the same day, the coordinators of the National Human Rights Center had visited the hunger strikers who apparently didn't expect to see reporters on the site. The center employees who wished not to publicize their names told activists that their demand to meet with Prime Minister will be satisfied. However, they refused to say the same in front of the camera and eventually had asked the journalists to let them talk to hunger strikers privately. Today is the 20th day of the strike, which is organized to oppose the state decree imposing premise ownership limits.
Are you sure that the strikers will meet with Prime Minister? We are not saying they will, but we say they will not be left without attention. This is not going to be ignored. We have also learned the situation on the internet.
The emergency ambulance drivers of Shymkent are paid extra attention by the local road police officers who started issuing tickets to medical workers for exceeding the speed limit. Thus, the drivers faced a dilemma, paying the fines or saving patients' lives.
The first aid service in Shymkent might become far not first soon, as the emergency ambulance drivers are regularly ticketed for speeding in order to save patients' lives. Tired for paying the fines from their own pockets, the ambulance drivers came up to the City Road police office, claiming that it is silly to fine for rendering first aid.
We have special conditions of work as the operator rushes us, as we often deal with emergencies.
Eshmurat Nurmuhamedov received double ticket for $200. In the first case, he was carrying a patient in a coma, and the second, the pregnant woman who eventually confined right inside the car.
If we're talking about the emergency call, the limit of 40 kilometers per hour is not going to help, and it is better to call it not emergency but a slow ambulance. I want to say that even the police officers have their family members, children, who may require first aid at some point. Will he still insist on such speed?
However, police doesn't deny that the special emergency ambulance cars may be speedier than the rest of transport.
Even if the driver crosses the intersection on the red light or violated the speed limit, he is not charged if he proves that he was on a call.
The emergency ambulance station has its own navigation system which tracks a vehicle's movement. Therefore, it is easy to prove it, say medical workers.
We display all the necessary documentation, the call card, trip ticket, the patient delivery card, etc.
Eshmurat Nurmuhamedov was weighed for one of his tickets he received for delivering of an in-coma patient. However, the fine of the second case...
They said to pay several thousands. Why didn't they count the confined woman? Isn't she a human?
However, the fine on the second case still remains valid.
This is all for today. Thank you for being with us and goodbye.